I'm James Johnston, Manager of Support and Training at Microsurvey Software. I'm pleased that I've been asked to give you a bit of an overview of the import and export capabilities of Microsurvey's embeddedCAD and InCAD. I'm using embeddedCAD for these examples. The distinction is embeddedCAD comes with an Autodesk licensed CAD engine built in, so it's a single file to install, whereas InCAD requires you to own an Autodesk product and it adds the same microsurvey specific functions to your Autodesk product. When I talk to people who use our product and have been using it for a long time, I often ask them what is it that really stands out with the product and why have they been with us for so long. And very often they'll answer that they just like the way we treat points. And that does kind of help to differentiate this product from a lot of other CAD related functions that are out there. With Microsurvey, we're constantly thinking about how surveyors need to manage points, build a drawing around points, import and export points specifically, and use those points as the framework about which to build a CAD file or a CAD drawing. So surveyors need to work with CAD technology, and the distinction of the microsurvey solution is that we're kind of like a points management program built into a CAD system so that in the end you can generate a CAD file from your points. Whereas many of the alternate solutions out there allow you to build a CAD file and points are kind of treated as an afterthought. So this is where people or our customers and ourselves kind of see this topic in the same way. So in this presentation, I'll focus on the selection of ways that embeddedCAD and InCAD allow you to interact with survey-generated point data. And I feel like I'm only touching on the surface, but I'm happy that I can tell you about it. So the first thing to think about is quite simply CAD files. Very often surveyors receive CAD files from other surveyors or from other engineering disciplines, and they need to work with them. So that answer is really easy. If somebody is sending you a file from an Autodesk product, you're opening it in an Autodesk product, and you have very good interchangeability with those other clients. We can also import DGN formats, and we can output a wide variety of formats as well. One of the really nice things about having a CAD product is that all of the infrastructure that you may already have in place that allows you to work with CAD files and produce deliverables all works within this. So here I've got a layout picked up that makes it easy for me to turn this example that I have open into a finished product. Now let's talk more about the specific topic of imports. Now, very often people need to import just simple points files, and that's easy enough to do in MS Points and ASCII import. This tool gets used frequently by people who also use Microsurvey's StarNet product as a fieldwork management tool. The final result is output as an ASCII file, and it's brought into a drawing so that you can turn it into a final product. Field data as well is importable, and by this I mean specifically traverse data in a wide variety of formats. So you'll find that your options for inputting traverse files are on the MS Traverse ribbon, and here I've got import file. And you'll see there's a wide variety of formats that are supported, but some of the highlights, we've got the Leica Captivate system. Down the bottom we've got the Trimble Job XML format. Over here we've got the TDS format, or also used by Carlson. And then lots of others in between, but this covers the needs of a large majority of our customers. If you do wish to import a file, what it will be, in this case, in this example, I have imported a job XML file, and you'll see here that it populates the active Traverse editor. So this is a tool that allows you to review the contents of the Traverse file. And here I'll just park it on the side here so you can see it. You can visualize your Traverse if you need to. By going to show shots, you can see what's happened there. If you need to make corrections, you can modify the contents of the Traverse file, or you can save a copy and then modify the contents of it, and then you can go back in here and you can recoordinate the Traverse. The end result is that you want to be able to use this Traverse to populate your drawing with points, which is what's happened here, and then you can start to turn it into a final product. To talk about this topic a little further, I'll switch over to a different sample, and this is one that we saw briefly before. And it comes from Microsurvey Field Genius, Microsurvey's field product. And with that system, it's a fairly well developed and very well integrated import format. When you import a Field Genius project, which you can do from right here, what it will import is the Traverse file, the points that were collected in the field, any line work that was collected in the field, information about your code list, and your scale factors if there were any involved in this project. It all imports in a single step, and as you can see in the drawing here as well, our field to finish coding system allows you to customize things quite a bit. This is exactly what we would see after you do an import. Once a file is imported, I can switch over to the active coordinate editor here to have a table view of the drawing. So here's a listing of all of our points, and you can actually manipulate the points, lots of operations that you can compute from here. If there were images collected in the field, you can click on the icon and have a look at that picture. If you want to have a look at what it looks like in Google Maps, you can pick on that icon right there. As I had alluded to earlier, when I did this import, everything didn't just come in as a bunch of line work on the same layer. What has happened is the AutoMap, which is Microsurvey's field coding system, and it applies in both our mobile products and our desktop products, allows us to customize what we see when we perform an import. So I'll switch over here and I'll show you how we can open up the AutoMap. And so this is the list of all of the field codes that were used, and many of them are customized. So for example, if I jump down, you'll notice that a series of trees were collected in this project. And if I look at the attributes of that tree, it's set up to insert a block, and we can identify exactly what the layer is and so forth. And so when this AutoMap is set and the import happens, it will automatically insert blocks. Now, some of the other things that have been customized are, for example, you notice how for the field code fence points, a specific line type has been assigned, a color has been assigned, and a name for the layer has been assigned. So all of this field data comes in and it gets sorted to an appropriate layer, and much of that manual drafting work is taken care of in a single step. A popular option when you're working with georeference data, which very often we are nowadays, is you might want to take advantage of online sources for imagery or other types of data. And so what you'll find is we've got the attach imagery function here, and it'll go through the Bing Maps server, and it'll import aerial imagery. And so with this example here, I've already done that, and I can just turn on that layer so you can see how the survey is imposed on top of the publicly available imagery. Another very popular way of interacting with online resources is the KML export. You can export a project with all of its lines and its points to Google Earth, and this is very useful for checking that you've got the right unit and coordinate system settings in your project, but it's also a very handy way of sharing information with clients who don't necessarily have your specialized software. I'll open up one other example here. You've got a project which is also, in this case, the Leica Captivate system was used to collect points, lines, a traverse file, and this one also happens to have some scanning data in it, which I'm not going to be using. And just something that's really important to point out about this product is all of this line work and all of these points, they're all what we would term smart. And so that means that if you later on go into the traverse editor here, you might discover that you need to make a correction to a traverse after you've worked on the drawing for a while. As long as the elements are smart, though, you can make changes to points, and then the microsurvey system will update the lines. And in fact, if you've added labels to the lines, it will update the values of the labels. This is a big contrast from working with regular CAD products, where if you have to make a subtle change, somebody has to go in there and very carefully grip edit all the different CAD elements that used to be dependent on the points. Microsurvey takes care of that stuff for you. Again, that's what happens because we're always thinking about the points first, and we want to think about how it's most efficient for you to generate a drawing. And so in this example, this gives me a chance to show you a little bit about what we can do with GIS data. So in this example, this one happens to have some GIS attributes collected with it. And if we click on these little icons here, it allows us to view what the attribute information was. And this information is also available for export. And it's also good to point out that if any images were taken, they become available too. So we can import and list attributes from the field. Another very important tool nowadays is we've got a selection of GIS import tools. A lot of our clients are starting to save time on projects by starting with a GIS import so that they've got their base map all set up. So with this product, if I launch that, what you'll see here is, of course, we've got import for the standard shape file, but you can also bring in KML, KMZ, GeoJSON, or JSON. Lots of different formats are supported. And at the same time, there are times when we have clients, or our customers have clients who require GIS output as a deliverable. And so here we can export a shape file, or there's also export attribute table, and that would allow you to export as a CSV file to give your client a lot more flexibility in the format. So that's basically what you can do with GIS, and this is a feature that's growing as well because our customers are more and more interested in it. So the final part of my talk is just about exports, and there's not much more to cover on that. As I've already mentioned, you're working with a native Autodesk DWG file, so it's easy just to save, and once you've built a file from points, you can send a CAD file back to another client who may not use microsurvey. That's okay. They can open up the CAD file and take it from there. You can always export a ASCII file, which I've got right here, an ASCII export. If you are sending information to the field, there's a wide range of export options, but a few to mention are if you want to send something out to Field Genius, this is a tool that allows you to window in a part of the drawing that you want to send to the field, and it assembles the project for you so that the field workers have both, line work for context and points upon which they can set up and continue a survey. In terms of export, we've got a few other formats that are supported here, most of which you'll recognize. And the one that I do like to point out here that is used fairly often is the Leica icon export. And this is just as handy as the Field Genius one because, again, it lets you window in the part of the drawing you want to send out to the field, and it will generate an ASCII file and a DXF file, which is easy to import into your field data collection system, and away you go. And one other major format that is worth mentioning is LandXML. So microsurvey can allows you to export points and parcels and alignments and surfaces in the LandXML format. We find a lot of people are using that for export to the field, export to machine control, or for sharing with clients who use other software packages. So that's that. Thank you for letting me go over all these different options. As I said before, I'm really only scratching the surface, but I wanted you to have a good overview of what's happening. Thank you very much for your attention, and be sure to stay in touch with your microsurvey contact and ask more questions.